If you're looking for the best Justice League comics for beginners, then you need to make sure that you watch this video. Woof woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus, aka the Mad Dog, and we're back with another video. Now I can't start this list without talking about JLA by Grant Morrison. This was the first Justice League title that I ever read. That's why it's going to come with such a strong recommendation, because I've said it in other where to start videos, but it's not always going to be the case that it's going to hold your hand and introduce you to these characters one by one. If anything, Grant Morrison's JLA does the exact opposite of that, because it gives you these characters exactly as they are, whether that be that Superman's electric blue or maybe he's still got his mullet. It acknowledges that there's a wider DC universe, but it does something that all Justice League titles should do, and it shows that regardless of whatever else is happening, this team will always come together when the world needs it. It's a near legendary run which has recently been collected in omnibus, but you can also get it in trade paperbacks. But in the beginning you've got the New World Order story arc, and then you move on to Rock of Ages, you've got World War III, and there's so many other titles that just define exactly who this team is. So although there is a few missing issues, I don't think it's going to ruin your enjoyment of this book, and it's the one that does have to be recommended first, and it's probably my strongest recommendation. But for the sake of my retention rate, please don't click off this video just yet. My next suggestion is Jla Earth 2, and I know what you're thinking, that's also written by Grant Morrison and it's also included in this book. But you maybe don't want to get into a full meaty run, in which case I would definitely recommend picking up just Earth 2. It was illustrated by Frank Wiley, so you're going to get beautiful art throughout this, and it tells a story of the Justice League confronting an alternate universe version of themselves and the crime syndicate. So it is a fun and interesting story, and you can also learn more about the members of the Justice League because they've got these mirror opposite versions of them. Because I do recognise that not everybody's going to want to read a 40-issue run from the same writer and the same creative team, but if you still want a taste of that Grant Morrison goodness, I think Earth 2 is going to be one of the best picks for you. Because you know, in these where to starts, I never say that it's comprehensive, but I do try to accommodate for as many different tastes and as many different situations as there might be. But you may still want to check out the comments, because there's always at least one person who tells me that my list is stupid and that my opinion is wrong. Another that I'd recommend is Justice League of America by Brad Meltzer. I know his identity crisis is a bit of a tough subject, and I'm not recommending that here, but his run on the Justice League was still something that I really enjoyed. And it was as I was getting into the Justice League, so yes, it wasn't the first title that I read, but I remember picking up some of the single issues from some kind of bargain bin of the Tornado story arc that was at the beginning. So if you want a book that is going to catch up on things, but at the same time not let that derail the story completely, then this is definitely one that I would recommend, and it's recently come out with a deluxe edition. The art in this is fantastic as well, and it doesn't just restrict itself to the core 7 members of the team. So there is an expanded cast, which I think is important if you're going to use Justice League as a way to get into the wider DC universe. Next up is Justice League by Christopher Priest. I have to put a little asterisk next to this because I haven't actually read this one. It was suggested to me by a friend when he heard that I was doing this list. But I've had a look into it, and I do think that this would be a good gateway comic into the Justice League. Christopher Priest is also just a great writer. I believe he's done quite a few films, but the main run from him that I absolutely love is his version of Black Panther. And although it isn't in the exact same style as that title, it does still give us a Justice League that harkens back to the Silver Age of storytelling. And this is also going to be the most recent Justice League title that's going to make it onto this list, because I haven't heard great things about Brian Hitch's run, and I also haven't heard great things about Scott Snyder's either. But although it does sound like you need a little bit of background knowledge about some of these characters before you can jump into it, it's still a short and enjoyable run that I think will allow you to then segue into other Justice League titles. But like I said, this is my friend's recommendation, so blame him and not me if you don't enjoy it. Next up is another classic because it's Tower of Barbell. I read this shortly after I finished up on Grant Morrison's run, and you're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, that makes complete sense because of the fact that this is a continuation of it. But I do think this can stand on its own if you know something about these characters. Maybe you've got a basic knowledge because of some of the movies that have come out in recent years, or maybe you watched the cartoon back in the day. You can very easily jump into Tower of Barbell, and there isn't going to be too many speed bumps for you to enjoy this. It tells a story of how Batman doesn't trust the Justice League and how that ends up being their downfall. So there is this thriller aspect to it that I think a lot of people would enjoy, and fortunately it is going to be released in a deluxe edition I think a lot of people should pick up. It's also quite short and self-contained, and I know that a lot of people like the Joe Kelly run that followed after this part of JLA, and although it is acclaimed, I haven't heard too many people say that it is great for new readers, so I can't wholeheartedly put it onto this list, but it might be one of those titles that you want to look at after you've read some of these others. Next up, and there's no way that this wouldn't be great for new readers, it's a book that's over my shoulder because it's JLA Year 1. DC's been pretty good at signposting this, because if a book says Year 1, you can pretty much guarantee that it's good for new readers. As well, this is written by Mark Waid, who is, well, Mark fucking Waid. I genuinely think he's one of the most underrated writers in all of comics, and I think that this is possibly one of his most underrated books in his comics career. Doubly underrated, and I don't know if this is going to be something like Negatives, where two negatives make a positive, but still, this is a great title, and I like the way that it doesn't focus on the main three within the DC universe. So if you've got a rudimentary understanding of who the Justice League is, this will give you that backing knowledge of characters like Flash, Green Arrow, I actually meant to say Green Lantern, but I made the same mistake that Penny did in The Big Bang Theory, Black Canary, Martian Manhunter. But admittedly, if you don't know who the Martian Manhunter is, maybe there's already a video that exists that could help you. Subtle plug. As well, this has got a really clean art style that would be accessible to anyone, and if you are literally looking for an entry-level Justice League title, this would probably be the one that I'd recommend most. However, a book that pretty much does a similar thing but in a different way is DC The New Frontier. This is a phenomenal book. I absolutely love this, and I think everybody should at least give this a try. It's written and illustrated by the late Darwin Cook, and it's set in the 60s at the time when the Silver Age of comics was being introduced. So it's about that passing of the torch, and you see Golden Age characters like Superman, Wonder Woman and Batman pass over the torch and start working with other characters from the Silver Age like Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter and the Flash. So yeah, admittedly there is a lot of overlap between these two, but they're both great in their own right. But if you're somebody who also likes the historical significance of characters, then DC The New Frontier is definitely going to be the one for you. I think if you do know something about these characters, then it would really enhance your enjoyment of this book, but you can still read this without having that. And even if you're somebody who's not interested in reading a Justice League title, at which point I'd probably ask, why are you watching this video? This is still just a great overall book that I think a lot of people would enjoy. And to segue into the next choice, I've got the DC animated movies. Now, considering that these have only been around for about 15 years, there's quite a vast number of them, but they did do an adaptation of DC The New Frontier. You've also got stuff like Justice League vs Teen Titans, you've got Justice League War, but there are a lot of great options here that I think would introduce you into these characters, but still have an art style that's reminiscent of the comics. From here, it would then be easy for you to branch into the medium, so I do think it is a good start, but it's worth having a little bit of a read up on the different titles and seeing which ones you might enjoy. And a lot of these are based on comics, so if you enjoy the animated movie, then you can actually buy the book that it was based on. Carrying on this theme of animation, as you've probably already guessed, I'm not just going to recommend comics to you, but instead ways that can also help you get into the comics, and the one that really introduced me into all of the Justice League was the animated series. And it may just be nostalgia talking, but this did a really good job of introducing me into a vast number of the members of the Justice League and a lot of their villains. But this had a lasting impression on me, and it may be the case that you're watching this video not because you want to get into Justice League, but maybe you have somebody younger that you want to introduce into this team. So if they are at that younger age where maybe they haven't been introduced to comics, or maybe they're not great at reading just yet, why not introduce them into the animated series? Moving back into the comics, my next recommendation is Justice. Yeah, it's literally just called Justice, but the art's done by Alex Ross and the story is written by Jim Krueger. This is a standalone 12-issue series which I stupidly sold the Absolute edition of when I really needed some money, and now I'm struggling to get this once again. But if you check out the links down below, I do have a tip jar and that would help me be able to buy a new copy. But you may be looking for a title that's got a more realistic art style, in which case you're going to get no better than Alex Ross. He has some of the most beautiful art in possibly the entire history of comics. And this was a book that reminded me of that classic Silver Age style of storytelling. But to make this as simple as possible, it's the Justice League going up against the Legion of Doom, and it's got three main story arcs to it. So you see the Justice League being attacked, you see them trying to recoup, and then you see them getting their own back. They also get some really cool suit upgrades by the end of it, which I think near enough everybody will enjoy no matter what your age is. But you don't need to have known what was going on with the continuity of the DC universe at the time when it was being published, and you don't really need to know more about the characters than is probably necessary. You can pretty much get away with just knowing the names, but as long as that's something that you've got in the back of your mind, then this is a story that I think you will enjoy and you should probably end up checking out. Next up's another recommendation. It's Justice League International, and you can see it just behind me here. This was a title that came out after Crisis on Infinite Earths when they were trying to bring in new readers into the titles. So yes, you may have a Justice League that doesn't have all the characters that you're used to seeing, but it's still a Justice League title at its core. I'm really looking forward to when all of this is collected in omnibus and I can read it all in one big go. But this title seems to have a lot of nostalgia, and a lot of people started with Justice League, so even though it isn't the most recent run, I think I can still recommend it based on what I've heard from other people and the fact that that was their gateway into this title. Now, I'm going to recommend Justice League Power Rangers to the dismay of pretty much everybody who's probably going to watch this this video. But the reason why I'm recommending this is because if I was about 7 or 8 years old, this would probably be the one title that I'd pick up. I absolutely love the Power Rangers, and you've had other crossovers like Justice League Avengers, which I think I'm going to put in the same bracket. And we're going to throw Justice League Black Hammer along with this suggestion, because if you know the other team that's featured as part of that title, you can then pick this up and learn about the Justice League through that way. So yeah, I'm not going to say that this is the best Justice League title of all time. That's not what Where to Start's about. It's about books that are pretty new reader friendly that still give you a good story so that you can get interested in the characters. And you may be like me, you might know who the Justice League is, but you might be a massive fan of Power Rangers. Or maybe you're not, in which case I've done a Where to Start on that team as well. But you can read this primarily from the standpoint of a Power Rangers fan and still learn about the Justice League as you're going along with it. So it's going to get the Mad Dog bark of approval, even if other people wouldn't recommend it, but you know, you can make your own video if you want. Next up's a bit of a cheat answer, but it's Solo series. Yeah, there is a DC series called Solo, but that's not the one that I'm recommending. What I mean by this is that you've got your main 7 members of the Justice League. And I say main, but they tend to change anyway. But I was recently reading the Batman and Robin by Peter J. Tomasi omnibus, at which point there's going to be a review that's coming out in the future. So, you know, subscribe. And during that, the Justice League showed up. And as well, when I was first getting into comics, I read Superman, Batman, and the Justice League appeared in there as well. If you read Green Lantern Rebirth, the Justice League's there from the beginning, so there's other titles that you can read. Maybe you really like one character within the Justice League, but you don't really want to jump in feet first with like a full-on Justice League title, but you still want to at least learn who these characters are and how they interact with each other within the comics. So why not pick up a Flash title? Why not pick up Wonder Woman and see if the Justice League feature in it at some point? Especially in modern storytelling where there's a big run, I think it's rarer that they don't show up than that they do. And at the end of the day, comics is about enjoying it and finding what you want to read, so why not start with the characters that you really like? Now I'm going to suggest Injustice. In previous videos where I've suggested Elseworld-like stories, people have said that they're only really better if you understand who the characters are to begin with. And I do agree with that to an extent, but when you've got these titles that are set in some kind of parallel, alternate, weird universe, they still give you who the characters are at the core. Yeah, maybe Injustice doesn't fall under that description exactly, but you're still going to learn who these characters are and what the relationships were before they were destroyed. And as well, there's probably more people who brought and played one of the Injustice games than there are who have brought comics. And if you're able to play that game with no issue, then I don't understand why you wouldn't be able to read this comic. This is for those people who maybe haven't experienced comics at all, but you want something that's going to be accessible to you. So yes, even though you're not going to see the Justice League go on a mission together, this is still a title that is going to show you a great comic and make you have a great time with these characters. If you are looking for something Elseworld, because of the fact that there isn't that continuity that you need to know, I can easily recommend stuff like JLA The Nail and also Kingdom Come. My last 2 suggestions are from the New 52, and the first one is going to be Justice League Dark. There were quite a few Justice League titles throughout this, so you had stuff like Justice League United, Justice League of America, but I like Justice League Dark because of the fact that it still is integrated in some form of continuity, but it doesn't give you the characters that you used to. So maybe you're somebody who prefers something a bit off the beaten track, like you prefer your Vertigo characters. Well, actually a lot of them are incorporated into Justice League Dark. So although it isn't going to be your Superman, your Batman, your Wonder Woman and the Flash at the forefront of the title, you are still going to get a Justice League title that does at some points cross over with the other characters. And I think this is a title that would surprise a lot of people with how enjoyable it was, especially when it's got the Justice League name, but it still isn't what you used to. And the last title that I'm going to suggest for this video, you've probably all seen it coming, and get your drinks at the ready, because of course it is Justice League by Geoff Johns. We're talking the New 52 era, and I remember when this came out, I was there, I got the first issue on the first day that it came out, and I really loved this title. The New 52 was a time that was built for new readers, so the first story arc sees a Justice League coming together, and then you just get great story after great story. So you have the Darkseid War, you have Throne of Atlantis, and you also have Forever Evil. But scattered throughout that, there's just other great moments that I think a new reader would really get a kick out of. This was the first time that I collected Justice League in single issues month to month, and I definitely recommend it to anybody that's trying to get into this team. And as well with this, you've got the benefit that it is main Justice League, so it's not Elseworlds, but it isn't connected to the main continuity of the 60 or so years that came before it. So for me personally, besides something like JLA by Grant Morrison or DC The New Frontier, I would recommend Geoff Johns' Justice League probably more than any other title. But within this list, I think there's going to be at least one suggestion that is going to help somebody realise where they can start reading Justice League. So that's my list, and if you are completely new to comics, let me know in the comment section below which title you're likely to pick up. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't like it, why did you get this far? Subscribe if you're new here and click the bell notification next to it so that you never miss a video. And check out my links in the description. I've got my social media along with our Reddit page, and there's also a tip jar if this video has helped you and you want to support the channel. Share this video wherever you can. I know that this video could help a lot of people out, and all I'm saying is that not sharing this video is something that the Legion of Doom would do and not the Justice League. But until the next video, just make make sure that you stay safe, stay reading the best books that you can find, and stay mad all you dogs. Woof woof! See you at the next video.